Good morning, y'all. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Mocha's application team doing our design shop talk today. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. My computer, just time got away from me. Decided to restart everything. So that was fun. Anyhow, I'm going to start. If you have questions while we're live, please type them in on the chat. Let me make sure I unmuted the mic. Yeah, so type them in on the chat. I have another monitor set up. That's where I'll answer any questions that come in live. So be sure to type those in. I'll start off with the ones that were sent in ahead of time. I did have one sent in another language that I didn't get translated, so I need to figure that one out. So I'm going to do that on the next talk. Anyhow, I know you can take a file and convert it to Appliqué easily. Can you take an Appliqué file and convert it to an embroidery file easily? I'll be honest, I don't understand this because an Appliqué file to me is an embroidery file, so I don't understand what the question is. If you can clarify, I'm happy to help. I literally don't understand it to be able to answer you, so I apologize. I have a design that's entirely single lines and walk normals. Is there a way to scale the design without the width of the single lines changing? No, but I can show you how to quickly change them all. All right, so when you scale it, it's going to change the widths. Okay, so I'm going to draw a bunch of single lines. All right, so I'm going to copy and paste these a bunch and make them different colors. And then I'm going to copy all that and paste it, move it, and convert that over to walk bean stitches. Okay. So I've got a bunch of stuff and it's all mixed around and mixed together, right? So I've got single lines and I've got walks. So if I take this all, my single lines currently are 28 points. So if I take it and scale it up, you'll notice my single lines now all change to 29. So the question was, is there a way to do this without having to go select them all individually, holding my control key? Yeah. Good morning, Lorena. Thanks for joining. If you select one, right click, say select same type. Now all my single lines are selected. So now I can come up here and say make them all 20. All right. So to do that again, I can do it a different way. Over here, I can select one, right click, select same type. Now all those are selected and I can make this whatever width I want all of those to go to. Okay. So you can make them all the same that way. All right, so it's really quick to do. Select, right click, select, same type. And then up here, make it whatever you want it to be. Okay. Yeah, so you do have to select everything and change the width, but you can do it quickly. So in the past I've showed you how to search for jump stitches. How do you do that? Okay, so when you go over here, I'm not sure this design has any. Actually, I know it doesn't. So let me add some jump stitches. So I'm going to draw some random jump stitches in here. Where are they? Walk, jump. All right. Jump. Whatever. I got jump stitches. All right. If I go over here, I can do a Control F. And I can look for jump stitch next and it will find them. So all the ones in the stitches tab that say JMP next to it are jumps. So I did that really quick. How did I do it? So from the project view, I went to stitches tab. I did a Control F, which is find. Oh, okay. Thank you, Lorena. I'll go over that. All right, so from here, jump stitch, I can say next and it will find it. So now I can select that jump, all those JMPs. Oops. All right, do that again. So now I can select that whole thing or select all those stitches and hit, and delete them out once I close this. So I can delete these. All right. So you can find them all that way. All right. So that's where you find those. So you come to stitches, Control F, find jump, next. There they all are. Cool. All right, so back to my applique question. So this one, when you have an applique file that has fabric there, but you want to do it into a fill, is there a way to do it quick? I usually just use convert element type using the placement stitch, because that's usually better than using the satin or any of that. And it is pseudo a one at a time sort of thing. Let me look for an example. That one will do. All right. Okay, so I've got this thing, and these areas, the tree trunk and the tree, are applique, right? So it's meant to be fabric. If I want to make those sewn, what I usually do is take this guy right here, which is the placement stitch, and I just do operations, convert to wireframe, and then I use that guy, convert to a complex fill, and then replace it. So that's what I always do, is select the placement stitch rather than all these satin stitches. So like that one right there. And operations, convert to wireframe. Oops, where was that? Not that one. Here's that one. All right, and then that's weird. I'm gonna delete it. So now convert to fill, add, make that green. So Lorena, that's how I do it. So it usually goes pretty darn quick, converting those over into fill. The only thing I then take care to look at is whether this outline is far enough to account for pull. If not, I go object, offset outline, and offset it to be bigger than what it's there. So if I don't think it's going to have enough overlap, I can up it. Now that's ridiculous. I wouldn't do it like that, but I was just showing you that's how I always adjust the outline as necessary to make sure the satin stitch is going to cover it well. Okay, Lorena, does that help? Okay, so let's see. We did those. So we just talked about that, talked about how to select. I need help choosing a computer. Let's see. What computer? This computer, the one I run this on is, all right, let me back up. I usually personally use, for years, used a gaming computer. All right, so one that had a separate graphics card with RAM on the graphics card to handle the graphics. I've used that for years. The computer I have currently running right now is a $300 one I bought off of Amazon. That meets, and it's working well. It has onboard processing separate for graphics, so but not a separate graphics card, and it works well. The graphics are not as pretty as my gaming computers, but for what it works for me. We did get you the minimum system requirements there. Like I said, you can't go wrong with a gaming computer. So they typically have a graphics card on them, and the graphics card has RAM on it, which just makes everything go nice and fast. So that's a fail-safe. Yeah, and someone else, Lorena types in, bought a Dell gaming computer. Yeah, that's what I've used for years, is gaming computers. This desktop that I'm using right now is the first one that I've not done that for, and I'll say I was really grumpy about trying it, but it's working. In V9, what settings and how do I get to it when I bought a file and want to enhance or improve the Stitchout? So when you buy files, there's not a whole lot of things you can do to modify them. So I'm going to go to my C drive, designs, legacy, and then the EXP file. All right, so when you buy designs, they come like this. They're expanded formats. They don't have wireframes around them, and they're just basically a bunch of coordinates and color changes of where stitches go. Okay. To change that, what sort of things do you have? Well, if I select everything, I can go into the scale tab. Where is it? Scale. I can do it one at a time or for everything. And here is the adjustments you have. You can adjust densities somewhat. You can do compensation somewhat. So you can actually go on each one of these and go into the scale tab and modify these sorts of things. So add pull comp, make minimum widths, you can scale it, all of that sort of thing. You can adjust straight from the scale screen. So that's where you find it. Okay, and that's in version 9 as well. It's a scale tab. If you go into properties, it's also under scale here. All right, so that's where you find it if you're in properties, or you go right click and go straight to scale. That existed as long as I can remember. Okay, we have another question that just came up. How do I do freehand drawing? Right here, see this guy? So this is the Bezier digitizing. That's where you digitize lines using left clicks and right clicks. It's my favorite way to digitize, but if you like to freehand it, so right here is this Freeform digitizing mode. If I click on that, now when I draw, it creates the file straight from there, or the design from what I freehanded, right? So freehand, you know, I can draw whatever I want and it draws it out for me. So Karen, does that help? That's where you find it. So again, I can do this, freehand, that one, make an ugly square. There you go. So it works with all the different digitizing ones, but you get to it by selecting a digitizing and going from the Bezier mode here over into the Freeform digitizing here. Merry Christmas in Germany. Thanks for joining today. Merry Christmas to you too. All right, let's see. What other questions? Let's see if someone typed in for the computer question, talk to Dell and get the lowest priced one with the most storage. I agree there. The more you can't have too little storage, and I really like solid state drives for the drive that the all the software and the operating Windows is installed on. It goes so much faster that way for solid state drives. All right, let's see. What other questions do we have? So those were all the questions that were sent in ahead of time. Yeah. What else? What other ones might you guys have before we call it a day? Let's see. I'm trying to think. Ah, we got one typed in. All right, can you tell me what settings in DesignShop I need to fix? My top thread pulling up on tie-in stitches on the lettering. I've been having trouble figuring out tie-in and tie-out lengths and when to use auto trim, auto tie features. Okay, so there's two separate things. On your machine, you can go into, let's see. Not there. Sorry, I'm looking for this one. All right, so tools, settings, settings, or machine. So right here, so if you go tools, settings, machine, right here you can change tail lengths. So you have that available for you. Okay, so that's one option. Depending on your machine, thread pulling up to the top can also be a tension issue with your bobbin. So make sure you're using appropriate bobbin tension. Okay, because sometimes you have it too loose. So that's another consideration. As far as the actual tie-ins and tie-outs, let's go look at those. All right, get rid of that. No. Okay, so if I go into the properties here, tie-ins and tie-outs. So first off, there's multiple styles of them. Which ones are best is kind of a subjective statement right there, because best, yeah. So Rachel, the 180, I personally have one machine out there that will pull tails up unless I have the bobbin 220. So that's the only reason I point that out as an option. So it's, but then the others run great at 180, so it's pretty funny. But anyway, this guy right here. So the different knot styles, you have 1 through 5. The only ones I personally like are style 1 or style 5, because those are lock stitches. So right here, it actually shows you what they do. All right, so a style 1 it's going to go back, forward, back, and then jump over it all and sew as the tie-in. So it's all in line, all right, and it's a lock stitch. It's tying it on. Style 2 is a single back stitch, and then it sews. Style 3, which is why I don't like it. It's not an actual lock. This red stuff is actually what's locking the thread. Style 3 again is 2 back stitches, and then it sews. Again, that's why I don't like it. Style 4 hangs out off the edge. Again, not for me. Style 5 is the most secure knot. It does an X. It's also the most visible. So in some cases, it does not make sense to use that one. All right, so the most secure knot, in my opinion, is the 5. Style 1 is perfectly acceptable. It's probably what most people use is style 1. All right, so let's look at them so you can see them. That's the tie-in. Let's look at the tie-off. All right, so I'm going to go change this to a style 5 tie-off. Apply, okay. So, and this will show you why it's not always the best choice. So you see that it's making an X, which is great, except it leaves a little tail hanging off. So depending on where your tie-off is, it may disrupt your design, right? I know on some fonts, when you do a style 5, it puts these weird tails off of other things. So it's not ideal. It'll leave a little dimple in it, right? So in those cases, you would definitely want to go to more of a style 1. Okay, and that's more in line. You can see it right there. That's that kind of half stitch where it's locking the thread in. All right, so that's the type of tie-offs. Let's see. The other reason for, let's look at these properties here. So you have tie-off, the autos trim. Right here, 32. So what is that actually telling you? So that's, if I were to draw another, oh, I'm still on that. Cool. All right, so I've got there to there. So where this element starts is where the green circle is. The propeller here is where it ends. So not what I wanted. I wanted to stay zoomed in. I wanted that button. All right, so that distance currently is 16 points. All right, so if I go into the properties, you can see that this is set to 32. So it's going to leave a connector stitch, which is what this is, a little jump stitch. They call it a connector. So it's going to drag it across to the next element. If it's smaller than this number, all right? If it's bigger than that number, it's going to execute a trim and move along, all right? So that number is what's governing whether it's going to do a trim or just drag a piece of thread over. So it used to default to 64, was the old software's default number for that, and that's personally not my cup of tea, right? So that being super long, I don't like that look. I don't like it. I won't do it. So I like anywhere from 20 to 32 myself. So with this number being, 20 to 32, I like that better. So if the thread's going to be super long, it'll do a trim, go to the next one, do a trim. No, this right here is governing when it will trim or not. So how long the tail is, that's being governed by the OS. All right, so this is just the type of knots. Okay. All right, so any other, let's see, Karen typed in some stuff. I don't like tie-offs in some areas because of the type of fabric. Set it to 100 or use a jump stitch to relieve tension on the thread. Yeah. So let's say you don't want to trim here, so it's really far. Something big. So this number is 100. And you'll notice a lot of commercial designers will actually put large jumps in there, right? So all right, so if that's really big, you can just come over here and digitize in jump stitches, right? To force the issue of having that, the connector between there be smaller, so it's not dragging this great big piece of thread and pulling long, right? So you can, that was a suggestion that someone had, to avoid having a long piece of thread that's pulling tight. You can force it to like do these jumps across there. And I will say you can also do that using this running stitch. Oops. Oh, I'm like, why is it misbehaving? It's because I'm not on Bezier. There we go. There you go. So I can do a running stitch on there, which I put it in the wrong spot. Let's try that again. I don't want to jump, I want a normal. There. So you can do a normal stitch and then make that stitch width, instead of being 20, which is really small, you can make that, you know, 40 or 50 or 60, you know, some big number that's more like a basting stitch. Numlock. There we go. And that will leave long stitches between there. So that's another technique. Rather than using jumping, you can use a running stitch to go around, and it'll make it really easy for you to cut those out. I would suggest you make sure that if you do that, notice there's no tie-off stitch on this element. And if you know you're going to cut that, go to the tie-ins and change this to always. That way it will do a lock stitch here before it goes into this running stitch, particularly since you know you're going to cut this stuff out. Okay, that would be just my suggestion, would be to not, you know, not have this only when necessary, make that always. Yeah, and then you can cut it by hand. So, yeah. All right. Because without that lock stitch, you risk this coming undone. Now, there's a, you know, if you really don't like it, you can have it trim the thread, you know, cut it, and then put the fray check or something like that. That's another way to stop it from coming undone. Okay, another question was typed in. What's the best format to bring artwork into DesignShop? Vector. So SVG, DXF, EPS, any of those. Because a vector format, when it comes in, it's a bunch of just boxes, and it's the art done in vectors. The only difference between this and a fill area is a stitch direction. So I can take that vector, add a stitch direction, and now that's good to go as a fill. All right, so if you have a choice, get a vector format, and it really doesn't matter what kind. EPS, SVG, DXF, some AIs, it's got to be an older version. I always just, personally, I open it up in Illustrator, select the art, open up DesignShop, and paste it in. That's how I do it. Okay, let me go back and see if I missed any other questions. Lots of good idea. Karen had some really nice suggestions on working with silk satin, and by using those jump stitches and connectors to avoid having all the knots showing on the design, so, or on the silk, so it's great. What other questions do we have? I'm going to go back to the top and make sure I didn't miss any. Okay, we did that, talked about that. Cool. All right, so I covered all the questions that were sent in ahead of time, plus the ones typed in. Anything else before I call it a day? I know we're getting close to Christmas. That's next Wednesday, right? Yeah, Wednesday. I don't know if I'm going to do anything Thursday. Let me check with my family. If we're not doing anything, I might be here on Thursday, the day after Christmas. My guess is we're going to take it off until the next year. Let's see. When doing heavier Carhartts, will a 75 needle work, or should I do an 80? DUX Carhartts, I don't know I haven't worked with those myself. I'm horrible. I run everything with a 7511 until it gives me problems, and then I move up. I guess it depends on how heavy the materials are combined. Going to an 80 is not necessarily a bad thing. I would look more at doing sharps versus balls, personally. That would probably help more than the size of the needle. And also, make sure, if it's really thick, make sure your presser foot's not too low so that it's not actually slipping into the needle and causing needle breaks that way. They're waterproof. Oh, the waterproof fabrics really aren't that bad. I would just use a 7511. So a question was typed in, what's the difference between 11 and 12? Let's see. New fonts, lots of new fonts. So there's these, plus all of these are new to 12. So you've got a lot of neat little fonts that were added. The tabs, so you'll notice here, if I open new files, I have tabs across here. Now these are really cool because I can actually put them side by side. So let's say I'm copying something from here to here, or I want to work on this file and then work on this one. I can actually, you know, copy this, come over here, paste it, and whichever one my mouse is clicked on, that will be the one that's active. So yeah, you can work back and forth between the tabs. You can merge them back onto one, so now it's just one file. So the tabs are really unique. There's a ton of new editing capabilities between the shapes, the text box, envelope, all the lettering things that I think I show them pretty regularly, but like if I go into lettering and go into the properties of that, so you've got applique, you can do a flat fill or standard, so you have different options here. Down here, I can change this to be envelope, which you've been able to do before, but now there's a bunch built in, so if you just want to quickly apply rather than having to draw that yourself, you can do them here. Like I said, there's a lot of new fun stuff. The guidelines, the rulers, I used those last week. So the rulers up here, but I can also add guidelines. So if I'm digitizing and I want to make sure things are always, you know, lined up or within different areas, I can draw these out wherever I want them. And then I can say, okay, now snap to the grid or don't snap to it, whatever you want. And you can force it to snap to it. There's gradient fonts that were added down here, which again are cool. Where are they? Gradient fonts. So you've got different gradient fonts down here that you can drag into the custom shapes. The faux marrow, I don't want that, go away. Yeah, so you can use those. The faux marrows and the chain stitches are pretty wicked. I love them. Like this guy right here is probably my favorite thing to do, just drawing wise, because it's thicker, it's thinner than a satin stitch, and to me, with one line, it's thicker than a bean stitch, so I love it for line work. We did get you a link in the comments to different things, some of the different features that are new. Ooh, here, let me show you another fun one. Where is that? Things I bought, fonts. And I saw a question online recently about the same topic. So how do you take, let's say you buy fonts and you get them with 100 different files like this. I think this is 190. It basically gives me each letter individually, right? So I can select these, paste them over here into the different tabs. So in the past, you've always had to select them one at a time and paste. Let me close some of this other stuff. Paste them in one at a time to be able to use them, which is great, except wouldn't it be better if we could just do it multiple? So this here is the large scarlet. Okay, and then this one is the capital A. That's 3 inches tall. All right, so I'm going to go select it. So the info I need to know is the height of the letter and then what I want to name it. So I'm going to go save letter. I'm going to create new. I like to keep these named similar to what I bought them at. What did I say it was called? Scarlet DST large 3. I like to put the size in it. That's just a personal preference. You can call it whatever you want. All right, so that creates the font. And then over here, I'm going to put in the height of this particular font. Cool. And then I put a capital A here and I say, okay, so now that letter's saved. This is a lowercase c, right click, can come over here, type the lowercase c, it's the same font. This is the uppercase C, right click, save letter, capital C, lowercase b. All right, I'm just going to do these few. Capital B and lowercase a. Save letter, lowercase a. All right, and then I can come up here and say close all, open the next ones, and continue. Well, what's cool about that is now if I go, oh, apparently I like this font. I started it before, but right there is the one I just did. It warns you that this is, so I did what, a capital A, a lowercase a, no, I didn't do a capital B. So it warns me that letter doesn't exist. And of course, all the letters I haven't done. But it makes it typable, right? So I can come over here and now that particular font is typable. It puts it into a this custom category here, and notice that A is a little different than our normal stars. That's your indicator that this is a DST font. It's an expanded font. So you don't want to just scale that stuff, right? Because it's just like scaling expanded files. You got to be careful with it. All right. So yeah, there's some links on more. I'm sure I missed stuff. There's a ton of new features. Oh, that one's fun. You know, I forgot about that one. So you know how people like to do, oh my gosh, fake embroidery, right? So where you print an image as a direct to film, DTF, and then you heat press it onto a shirt and it looks like embroidery, but it's not, it's just printed. You can do that by basically digitizing something here, whatever you want it to be, right? So I can go open this guy, and then I can say File, Save As, make it a PNG, and I can change the DPI to be print worthy, and it will save it as a no background file that looks like this, so you can use it for print medias. So you can tell I don't do that a lot. I forgot about it, but it's a new feature, which is kind of fun. That was a trend for a while. So any other questions? My friends are leaving. All right. Well, hang on for a second. Someone's so Lorena says that she's used a 7511 on Carhartts. So yeah. Okay. Don't forget to you can submit questions at any time, particularly if we don't do it next week. It's going to be a few week break. So if you find you have questions and you don't want to forget them, just submit them and they'll be there. So like I said, I'm current on all the questions with one exception that was submitted in another language, and I forgot to translate it before I had to go and do some other things. So yeah. So have a fantastic holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Enjoy yourself with your families. I know I've got the rest of this week to finish up with my coaching stuff and the kids at the canal, so that'll be a blast. And let us know what you want to learn, and we will try to get those incorporated for you. Have a fantastic holiday and Merry Christmas. I will see you guys next year. Bye, everyone.